in the end.
With Time Crisis 1 being a success in arcades, it's no surprise Namco wanted a sequel. Time Crisis 1 was very revolutionary with its use of a foot pedal to hide behind cover compared to the normal light gun setup seen in games like Area 51 and Lethal Enforcers. However, those games had what Time Crisis 1 lacked, co-op. Thus, Namco implemented co-op in Time Crisis 2, and it brought it to a whole other level of fun. With this implementation done, amongst many other improvements, Time Crisis 2 made its arcade debut on December 13th, 1997 for Japan, and February 1998 for North America, and somewhere in between in Europe. Like the first game, it was a success, and given the PS1 port of Time Crisis was making waves around this time, the sequel would also have to get a port to consoles. However, there was one small problem. The Namco System 23 hardware that Namco used for Time Crisis 2 was a bit more than the PS1 could handle. For reference, Time Crisis 1 ran in on the Namco Super System 22, but its PS1 port had to have some limits put on it, such as not running at 60 FPS and having slightly looking worser visuals. The Dreamcast seemed like a better option, but with the exception of Soul Calibur, Mr. Driller, Miss Pac-Man, Maze Madness, and the Namco Museum, Namco never really supported the Dreamcast that much. The support of Time Crisis 2 wouldn't be possible until the PS2 launch, and given how Tekken Tag's PS2 port had upgraded visuals, the Time Crisis team decided to do the same. About more than 1 year after the PS2 launched, Time Crisis 2 would be released for it on October 1st, 2001 for North America, 3 days later for Japan, and 15 days after that for PAL territories. This version would feature better graphics, extra content, and the biggest thing of all, a brand new light gun, the GunCon 2, though previous GunCon 1 owners could use the GunCon 1 in Time Crisis 2. However, old school light guns don't work with modern LCD TVs because of the technology used in them that solely relied on CRT TVs. But thanks to the wonderful people behind the Sinden light gun, you can pick up a Sinden light gun, a Raspberry Pi, an Arduino, and an upscaler like the RetroTink 5X or the OSSC to apply a border, and you can play GunCon 2 games on a modern TV. Pretty cool, huh? All footage you see here is from the console using all the things mentioned to play it the way it was intended. And hot damn, this game is still fun after all these years. Let's find out why. Time Crisis 2 takes place 2 years after the original game, but with a new set of agents and a new threat to the world handled by the VSSE. In 1997, data communications company Neodyne Industries, Ltd., completes a global network of 64 satellites to improve the world's telecommunications and network communications. This network is known as the Starline Network, but it's actually a mere front to launch a nuclear satellite into space. The head of Neodyne, Ernesto Diaz, does this so he can, you guessed it, take over the world, of course. The VSSE gets wind of this, and following the kidnapping of VSSE agent Christy Ryan, who was investigating this, VSSE sends 2 of their agents to get her back and prevent the launch, Keith Martin and Robert Baxter. It's up to these 2 to stop the launch and save the world with only so much time to go. Time Crisis 2 pretty much follows the same formula seen in the previous game. You'll be in cover until you press the pedal or buttons on the GunCon 2 controller, A, B, C, or the ThumbCon, and then you can fire away until you run out and then release the button to reload. You can set up the inverse, but I don't recommend that. Or at least I thought you could. I don't remember. One new improvement in this game over the first is the Crisis Flash. The Crisis Flash is a red color bullet that fires out from enemies with red armor on. They usually have the highest accuracy, unlike in the previous game, which gave no warning when a red color enemy would hit a player and cause them to lose a life. Here you're given that warning, and it's so much better as a result. It makes it so you can't be blindsided as a result. Though, enemies with knives, though, aren't as obvious. And be careful not to get hit too much or it's game over. Unlike the PS1 version of Time Crisis 2 lets the player continue from where they left off instead of the start of the section. Another big improvement. Depending on how well you do, you might also be able to take some secret paths where you can find bonus enemies for more points. The co-op itself is also a good addition as you can have someone cover you when needed. Be careful not to shoot your partner or you will lose points. The arcade machine would link 2 cabinets together for this, and unless you set it to single player at the start, a partner could drop in at any time. With the PS2 version, you could do split screen 2-player, or if you really had the setup for this, 2 fat PS2s, 2 TVs, 2 copies of the game, 2 GunCon 2s, and an iLink cable. Of course, nowadays, you'd replace the GunCon 2s with 2 Sindens, and, well, you get the idea. If you really wanted to do a cross-gen ordeal, you could system link 2 PS2s, but one would use a CRT and a GunCon 2, and the other would use a modern TV with a Sinden. I hope to be able to show that on here one day, but all in good time, hopefully. The game is very simple at its core, and everything works. The controls are very straightforward. Point at the screen and pull the trigger to shoot. The aforementioned buttons on the GunCon 2 allow you to exit out of cover. The thumb con is the best button of the bunch since you don't have to hold the handgun shaped light gun like a shotgun. Still could be worse. Could be using a normal controller. Please don't. It's not good. Though if using a Sinden, you might want to have a solution for the pedal ordeal, since the button placement is all on the side, and you end up holding the handgun-shaped light gun like a shotgun. Player 1 can plug in a controller into their port and use the controller as a makeshift pedal. Same applies for player 2. Still not ideal, but better than nothing. Better find a racing wheel with a pedal or something. Also, going from the very light GunCon 2 to the slightly heavier Sinden can be a bit much for longer periods of play. Keep in mind, I have the recoil version of it, so that's probably why it's heavier. Non-recoil may be lighter, but I can't say for sure. The graphics are also pretty damn good. The PS2 version overhauled them, so everything looks much better compared to the arcade version. Models are less blocky and have more polygons to boot, they look cleaner, neater, and this also extends to boss characters as well. Regular enemies don't look as good, but that's about it. Building and car textures have also been improved and look cleaner as well. Most environment details look fine, less jagged edges and the like, but some textures on these objects don't look as good and are starting to show their age. Some things aren't as colorful as the arcade version, mainly some outfits. Still, these are only minor flaws and don't impact the game on a whole. It's still pleasant enough to look at. The sound design for the game is pretty good. Sound effects sound in place, the effects themselves sound good, and this even applies to short riffs. The music is also cool. You have remixed riffs of some of the original stuff, a little rock here and there. Buff Bryant's boss song sounds like something out of Ridge Racer Type 4. Wild Dog's theme remix is good, and the final boss music sounds epic as it should. The voice acting is not great though. Neither was the original game's voice acting, but it has that kind of quote along the room / Rocky Horror Picture Show vibe going on. I can't help but smile and quote it as I play sometimes, you know. Now to take a look at the story. Spoiler warning as usual, let's go. We start off at Neodyne itself. It's a normal night where Lieutenant Yakov Kinski is patrolling when all of a sudden we find a woman being spotted by him, and she fires some shots off on him. Those spotlights must be more deadly than expected. The woman is VSSC agent Christy Ryan, and she found out the true purpose of the Starline network. She escapes to a safe house with a briefcase of information, but before she can sound off, Yakov and his men show up.
Left yet?
Keith and Robert are on their way. No one can beat them.
Keith and Robert?
Well, it appears we have a guest.
What's with those animations? They seem more unnecessary there.
Problematic, to say the least.
A punch like that, and you think you're gonna conquer the world.
Silence!
Oh God. Seriously, the way he says that, and his over-the-top nature with his movements, make it more hilarious. On top of the good-bad voice acting. Anyways, Keith and Robert show up and the game begins. We run through the room, a nearby center, which can have a split path depending on how well you do. And the Area 1 of the stage ends with Yakov crashing a semi-truck in the area, and we shoot him a bit. Area 2 has us chase him through an alley of sorts, while shooting more goons. Fun fact, if you shoot his hat off each time he shows up, at the end you'll be taken to a bonus area where you can get more points. If not, you'll just shoot a truck with a machine gun.
So, who are those two? Where's the girl?
I thought you would have known. You told your men to take her away. Area 3 ends with us chasing Yakov on a boat through the canal. There are even water cyber ninjas to fight. Wow. This fight is fast-paced, intense, has a kick-ass theme to it, and is just fun. Though that damn laugh of Yakov's has lived rent-free in my head for far too long, by the way. Take him down, and we end stage 1. Keith and Robert get the briefcase and find out the info.
I knew it. These maniacs have got the military satellite. And they're moving it by train.
We better get going. There's no time to lose.
And yes, Robert's voice actor is the same as Wild Dog's voice actor, the late Scott McCulloch. We begin stage 2. The satellite is being transported, and another one of Diaz's lieutenants, Buff Bryant, is watching and given the news about the case being repossessed by the agents. He doesn't take it well.
That fool Yakov! How dare he fail!
Yes, destroy the means of communication with his boss, so he'll only be waiting longer to find out what happens at the end of this stage. Keith and Robert then fight their way through a forest to get to the station. Not much happens here, it's pretty straightforward. Area 2 then begins and we're on the train. We keep fighting our way through the cabin at first until Buff comes and shoots out the windows. We then work our way out of the cabin and head onto the other train onto the top. There's another secret area if you shoot bonus enemies when the train goes past you. You'll take your partner's route with more bonus enemies. After the area, the satellite is picked up and taken back to base, where Buff tries to snuff out Keith and Robert.
Nice try, boys. But my job's to protect this satellite. It's time for you to say goodbye.
What's with the voice discrepancy? Whatever. Boss time. Buff's fight starts out simple as you and your partner take turns shooting him while he fires a Gatling gun. After a while, he jumps out and lifts this giant-ass missile like it's nothing. What the hell? How much is he bench pressing? Anyway, alternate shooting once again and he'll flee into a helicopter. Hit him enough times and he'll go down. He'll take the helicopter with him, which Molo rounds the bridge with a fiery explosion. Keith and Robert barely escape, take out 2 guards, and head to Neodyne's base. Stage 3 finally brings us to Neodyne itself, and the rocket with the satellite is just about ready to launch. Diaz is so assured, but Christie uses a line that probably encouraged onlookers to insert a credit.
Your project is going down in flames. They'll be here soon.
I'm expecting them. Why do you think I kept you alive?
General Diaz, we've got trouble!
So soon? Wild Dog, it's time.
Yes, sir.
Yep, Wild Dog is back once again. That explosion in the last game didn't actually kill him, so now we have to finish the job. Keith and Robert jump out of the helicopter after it gets shot to hell, and we begin the fight to Diaz. Right through his goons. After swiping through some of them, Wild Dog finally appears. Yeah, that explosion only took out his left arm, and he now has a machine gun attached to it. There's another bonus section here, but only in solo mode in the arcade version and maybe the console versions. When he first appears, shoot him every chance you get as many times as possible. If done properly, you'll get more yellow bonus soldiers. Keep at it until the end of Area 1. Diaz is getting frustrated.
Wild Dog, why is it taking you so much time to get rid of them? All right, I'll take care of this myself.
You can't rush it all, man. But hey, if you want something done right, do it yourself, I guess. So now we have to fend both of them off. Just be on point and watch out for any crisis flashes. Eventually, towards the end of the fight, Diaz will take Christie, so we quickly finish off Wild Dog, but not before he finishes the job himself.
VSSE, you fools!
And that was totally the last time we ever heard from Wild Dog. P.S. I'm being sarcastic. We then head up to a rising platform for the final area. Same strategy as before, but don't shoot Christie or you'll lose more points than if you accidentally shoot your partner. After enough hits, Diaz tries to throw Christy to her death. Yeah, that escalated.
Oh, thank you.
Fortunately, we get her in time, but now comes the final boss.
Look, the satellite's still there.
This is just a prototype. We're ready to launch the real one. You are like roaches. I underestimated your persistence. This is not a real satellite.
But it's a very convincing mock-up. Anyway, this fight is also very straightforward. Shoot Diaz when he appears and tear that satellite a new one. Just watch out for that laser and don't let it hit you. Keep it up and he's done. He says he underestimated you, and that's always going to be the downfall of every Time Crisis villain. Diaz falls to his doom, the sequence is aborted, the rocket explodes, destroying the satellite, everybody escapes, the end. Hey! Over here! We have a hell of a report to write! Don't you just love that satisfactory ending part of the song as you fly off into the sunset? Really makes you feel like you've accomplished a lot and deserve to relax with your significant other. Well, alright, now that that's done, let's wrap it up. In terms of replayability, there's quite a bit to unlock. More lives and credits, with you eventually earning free play, bonus ammo modes like infinite and wide, mirror mode where the image is mirrored, and you can even get an option to use 2 guns with 1 character. Cool. You also have an agent trainer for practicing. You can play Quick and Crash and Shoot Away 2 as bonus minigames, and you have the Crisis mission mode. This mode will give you goals to complete. 6 missions across 5 parts, or days as the game likes to call it. These missions will really put you to the test and may help you get better at the game. The final day, Day 6, has 2 tough missions that will require you to use all that you've learned from the other missions. One has you taking down the satellite and a whole bunch of other enemies while trying to hit a score threshold, and the other has you having a one-on-one fight with Richard Miller, the protagonist from the original Time Crisis. Complete Crisis mission and you'll get the music player. There's quite a lot to unpack after you finish the game even once, and you'll have quite the time doing so. Time Crisis 2 did everything the first one did right, fixed a lot of what didn't work, and added some new stuff to make it just as good, if not better in some aspects than the original. It looks good, sounds good, controls well, is a lot of fun to play, especially in co-op, and it has plenty of content to keep you coming back. However, the voice acting isn't the best, but I guess that's to be expected. The jump from GunCon 2 to Sinden can take some getting used to, and the barrier of entry to play this properly nowadays might be too much for some. And that's probably my biggest hurdle with recommending this game. The game by itself is $20 complete, though I got it for $8 back in 2015, so yeah. If you get it bundled with the gun, it will probably cost a bit more. Not to mention we now live in an age where CRT TVs aren't common anymore, and while the Sinden is the best modern solution to play this and other GunCon/GunCon 2 games, it is not cheap. I mean, the gun itself, which costs more if you get the recoil version, an Arduino Micro with a header, a set of female-to-female DuPont jumper wires, another set of all that for a second player, a Raspberry Pi and micro SD card, and a RetroTink 5X or OSSC just to apply a border for it all to work. So where do we go from here? I would say if you still have these games lying around but don't have a way to play them with a GunCon 2, go for it. You'll get a lot of usage out of it, and you can use the gun on PC as well in emulation. For first-time players, give these a go in emulation, and if you like what you see and want to play it on real hardware, go for it. Or if you by some chance have a CRT TV that still works and you have it set up, just stick with that for as long as you can. Either way, just play it as it's one of the best light gun games ever made. I'll probably cover the other PS2 GunCon 2 games at some point, but we can't forget where it all started. I give Time Crisis 2 a 4 out of 5. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.